Good morning, and thanks for coming today. I'm Jon Knoles, Design Director at Turn 10 Studios in Redmond, Washington. It's always great to be back in the beautiful Bay Area where I'm originally from, and I'm thrilled to have been asked to present today. I was moved and inspired at last year's conference by presenters sharing their knowledge, their passion, and experiences in the pursuit of making gaming for everyone a very real and attainable vision. I can't promise to move or inspire anyone today, but I do hope to share some meaningful insight and advice. 2019 marks my 9th year at Turn 10 Studios, my 30th year making video games, and it's really never been a more exciting time to be making games. I mean, the pace of progress within inclusive design throughout the industry is pretty amazing to see. It's almost as if there's a race among developers to see who can make the most accessible game. And I know a little bit about racing games, so that's pretty cool. And it's honestly a race where everybody wins. So today, I'm going to share some of our history, learnings, and approach to inclusive design, and how we've accidentally made Forza a more accessible racing experience in the past decade. I say accidentally because over the years, we focused our efforts to reach a broad and diverse group of gamers of all ages and skill levels specifically, while still pleasing our core player. It wasn't until the past few years that we realized this work helped remove barriers for players we weren't specifically targeting. More importantly, we've learned that solving accessibility problems is really about solving customer problems, and vice versa. We began our journey focusing on specific customer problems, and we ended up solving accessibility problems as a result. Now, we are focusing on inclusive design first, knowing that empowers all players. Today, we fully embrace these new opportunities and challenges, and are looking not only to improve our franchise accessibility, but also evangelize the importance, the responsibility we all share in making gaming for everyone a reality through inclusive design. Anyone here not familiar with Forza? Our vision is to turn car lovers into gamers and gamers into car lovers. That's kind of our North Star. We love cars and we love games, and we think everybody should love both. We have 2 game series for Xbox One and Windows 10 PCs. Forza Motorsport is developed by Turn 10 Studios, and it focuses on the thrilling competition of circuit racing, while Horizon, developed by Playground Games in the UK, celebrates the playful world of open world driving and the freedom of the open road. And together, this franchise has sold over $1 billion at retail and has 8 million players monthly, which is really cool. But those numbers could not be achieved were it not for the targeted efforts we've made to include as many players as possible, a broad and diverse audience. But we didn't start out that way. To better understand where we are today, it's helpful to know where we came from. In 2001, racing games were very different. The Fast and Furious franchise on film had just kicked off. Everybody was into street racing. Beyond Need for Speed and arcade-inspired games like Crazy Taxi and Midtown Madness, there was a growing community of players looking for more authentic driving experiences. This community was looking for stimulation and realism. They wanted to test out their skills, and they equated failure as a metric for challenge. It was also a time when location-based arcade machines were being translated directly to consoles. And they were designed to take quarters. And that meant you were meant to start over again and again and again. They were designed to be punishing. They were designed to be hard. So it's no surprise that the games that were being translated directly from arcade machines to consoles followed a similar design philosophy. You were not given assists to help you drive better. You were not given interface overlays to help you navigate better. And you didn't even have the ability to restart a race. So you could play the game for a half an hour, crash, and guess what? You're starting over from the start. You were expected to. Racing games were hard. They were revered for their difficulty in punishing players for failure. In 2003, Jack Black, having spent over 400 hours on Project Gotham Racing 2, finally completed the platinum difficulty and sent this photo to Bizarre Creations, the developer of the game. I think he sent it in the mail. This picture was a badge of honor for everyone who worked on PGR. These were the days before social media, before YouTube and game streaming. Development teams fed off their own gaming taste, and as well as the traditional review outlets, which were magazines that traditionally favored the hardcore racers. Things like this nourished the teams. It was around this time that the team at Turn 10, making the very first Forza Motorsport for the original Xbox, was sitting down to play a first playable build. No assists, simulation physics, stiff penalties if you crashed, mission accomplished. They'd made a really great simulation racing game, and it was hard. And this was before usability testing and public betas. Outside of a core group, nobody else working on the game was having any fun playing it. And it was immediately apparent that Forza's realistic physics, while accurate, were just brutal to anyone who doesn't race or aspire to race cars professionally. So during development, we play a lot of competitive titles, back then and today. One of the games they played back then was MotoGP 2. It wasn't car racing, obviously, but it was considered the motorcycle simulation racing game. And one of the cool things they added was an arrow that glowed red when they wanted the player to slow down. The Forza team said, hey, wait a second, doesn't our Drivatar system already do this? And for those of you who don't know, Drivatar is a learning AI system that Turn 10 developed with Microsoft Research that basically tracks player inputs and then teaches itself how to drive like the player. The Drivatar debug overlay we had was crude, but it did dynamically actually show a debug line where the AI needed to speed up and slow down and as it was traveling around the track. So the team replaced the debug driving line that we had with colored arrows based on traffic lights. Green, go fast; yellow, slow down; red, brake really hard. This was huge. The system was easy for anyone to understand. It started to teach players where the braking zones were on a track and the racing lines were. Again, this was to help us play our game better. But at the end of the day, it ended up teaching players how to drive. As reviews hit, it became clear that this driving assist was a game changer. And our first foray into accessibility. We were able to let new players dip their toes into simulation racing. And bringing new and experienced players into the franchise became a driving force in design from that point onward, beginning with Forza Motorsport 3. Now, Forza Motorsport 3 was E-rated, which automatically helps broaden your potential audience, but we also wanted to welcome less skilled players. So we added a rewind assist. This let you literally rewind your race anywhere on the track to undo a mistake or to take a better line through a turn. And they were unlimited, and the game did not punish you for using it. Forza Motorsport 3 also had a new introductory experience, or what we call the IE in development, or what you might call the FATUI. There's probably some other an acronym you can throw in there. At the start, players were given an exciting supercar to drive and a bespoke experience that walked them through new assist features. And with that came the ability to choose what kind of difficulty you'd like. However, the team quickly learned that players are terrible at determining their own skill, especially in a racing game. Everybody thinks they're Mario Andretti. So we got feedback that players who chose serious felt the cars were impossible to drive. They were just too hard. So this taught us three things. Don't ever ask the player their skill level. Do turn on driving assist by default and provide an option to turn them off. And keep adding more driving assist options. Another example where solving a customer problem also solved an accessibility problem is the really cool story about how self-driving for Kinect evolved into one-button driving for anyone. Oops, sorry, I went backwards. There we go. So I joined Turn 10 when the team formed an incubation group to explore new Kinect sensor technology for Forza Motorsport 4. While we instantly looked for hardcore features like head tracking and stuff like that, it was pretty clear that it was a great opportunity to capture players who felt the control was too difficult or too complex. We tried all sorts of things like stick shifting and moving your gas and brake pedals, and you're standing there in front of a television doing all this wacky stuff, but people just wanted to drive. 9-3 position. So we focused on that. It's not 10-2 anymore. They teach 9-3. Developing for the Kinect taught us how powerful our Drivatar system could be in solving for the lack of fidelity in using your body as a controller. The driving assists that were developed from this system that could accelerate, brake, and even steer your car around the track without you doing anything was pretty cool. It was rough. You wouldn't win any lap times, but the car would go around the track. So you could simply steer the car just by using an imaginary steering wheel. Now, the result of this was that anyone could play Forza Motorsport 4 with just one input. And with all those other layered assists, like traction control, automatic or anti-lock brakes, all those things, you could not just drive a car, you could drive a 1,200 horsepower rear-wheel drive hypercar around a racetrack with just one input. So this resulted in new auto steer and auto brake options that were available to all players, even if you didn't have Kinect. And we soon started to win accessibility rewards. What? Where did that come from? We had no idea. We were shocked. It never dawned on us that our experience could reach a whole new audience of players. And it was a watershed moment which motivated us to focus on building scalable difficulty and accessibility options into our games moving forward. Okay, so flashing forward to 2014, 2 years after the release of the first Forza Horizon, and 1 year after the launch of the Xbox One and Forza Motorsport 5. Playground Games were hard at work completing Forza Horizon 2. And this was also a time when we took the opportunity to assess just how accessible our games really were. We asked our test team to see how Forza Horizon 2 might score if there were a compliance test of the game against the full list of guidelines available at gameaccessibilityguidelines.com. That's a really long URL, by the way. On this site, guidelines for mobility, cognitive, vision, hearing, speech, and general accessibility are grouped into 3 categories. There's the basic, easy to implement, wide-reaching, apply to most game mechanics. Intermediate requires some planning, but is often just good general game design. And advanced, where you have complex adaptations for profound impairments and specific niche mechanics. So at a high level, our assessment followed a pattern we'd expect to see. We're pretty good at hitting the basic level, ticking off some of the intermediate, but a lot less of the advanced guidelines. Looking deeper per category, it was clear that vision and hearing were 2 areas that stood out as needing the most work. So we were determined to improve these areas moving forward, as this exercise helped us identify where to focus, starting with colorblindness support. Forza's driving line that turned green from green to red was a great idea, unless you were red-green colorblind. Many of our customers are. So the suggested line is now blue in both games and is designed to be more visible in the changing conditions on track and in the open world, weather, time of day, all those sorts of things. Both teams also began to take much more care in making their default menus and HUD clearly understandable to gamers with different types of colorblindness. Open world games like Forza Horizon series use lots of colors. There are scores of icons, objectives, HUD elements, find items, represented by just about every color in the rainbow. And this can create confusion, especially if your eyes cannot separate them. So Playground's design teams and UI artists use smartphones that simulate various forms of color blindness, all sitting at their desks, checking their work, and inviting other coworkers over who have different forms of color blindness, and reviewing their work, and making sure that they're not relying solely on color. But even this approach has its limits. So Playground introduced a new colorblind mode in Forza Horizon 4 Start options, which changes the colors of some elements based on the 3 main forms of color blindness. Let's see if I'm playing here. Now, whoops, sorry. It's pretty subtle. To those without color blindness, especially if it's not playing. We'll skip the video. But to those without color blindness, you may not see what's happened, but a lot of the icons themselves just change colors based on whether you selected deuteranopia, protanopia, or tritanopia. And they're not relying on just color only. There's outlines, there's animations, there's all sorts of things in the UI design that help make things more visible. Okay, so I also wanted to talk about sound. It's another big area of change we wanted to work on moving forward. Subtitles and captioning are not the only solution for hearing impaired players, but they can have a huge impact on their experience. And if you're not sure how much, there's a simple test you can perform. Play your entire game without sound. Near the end of Horizon 2 development, we asked our test team to play the game entirely without sound, and then document what they didn't understand in order to play the game. The biggest issue is subtitles were limited to cinematics. but the characters also spoke and provided a lot of instruction and motivation during gameplay, and that was not subtitled. And this was a problem for customers who couldn't hear them clearly or at all. This resulted in a large list of bugs that we had to weigh against other bugs late in development. And those that we couldn't tackle in Horizon 2, we aimed to fix for the next title by committing to doing subtitling for all pertinent game voiceover. And for the first time, these would be considered blocking bugs to gameplay in Horizon 3. This is a critical shift in thinking I'll get into in a bit. Should be easy. You know, film and TV have been doing this for decades. What's the big deal? Why do games struggle so much to get it right? Well, we have bespoke rendering in sound engines, scripting systems, font displays, lots of animated HUD elements, all battling for screen space. These factors and the non-linear nature of games create challenges that linear meteors do not face. Maybe someday there will be a standardized closed captioning system and API that all platforms can share. I really hope so, because this is really hard and we do this all the time. But until then, we just end up rolling our own. We built an automated system for subtitling in Horizon 3 that did all kinds of cool stuff. It did wrapping, timing, scrolling, animated color icons for each speaker. When you have a lot of characters talking at you, it helps to know who's doing the talking. Fairly simple from a code perspective, but it took considerable effort and iteration. And when we finally had subtitles working in both cinematics and gameplay, we felt it was a big win. Sweet. But we didn't exactly win praise from accessibility advocates. And this actually was written by Susan. Susan can't play it. She was not impressed with the visibility of our subtitles. And I'll show you a quick video that'll demonstrate why that is. I would like to show a video. Just a moment.
You're going in at the deep end.
Do we have volume?
Well, at least you look the part now. This is a classic car escape. The hero's being chased by a jet and escapes by
So,
jumping through an old...
what do you think the problem is?
It's all marked out for camera coverage, okay? You just
They're pretty small. It's a cool system, though. I mean, it fires off, you know, based on what you're doing. It helps you understand the other things that are going on. But yeah, if you sit really far from your TV, actually, if you sit normal distance from your television, let's face it, this is not great. So all that effort and polish to make subtitling system that does so much, yet we couldn't really see the forest for the trees. Your subtitles need to be legible in order for them to work. Like this wonderful example. And I love the line I actually found when I hit screen capture. So Far Cry New Dawn is a great example. They have great options. And actually their default subtitles are just, you can't miss them. I think this might have been one stage up from default. I love it. I love seeing games like this, take it to the next level. Spider-Man, Far Cry. I applaud Ubisoft and Insomniac and other developers for taking these steps. It just inspires us and actually, kind of forces us to go, okay, we really have to do better than this. So, moving forward, we need to go from subtitles like this to maybe something more like that. Or give players the options to do this. Like I said, it's not easy. It's something we just have to start working on. In hindsight, we could have better educated ourselves on subtitling guidelines or sought input from players who have both vision and hearing challenges. But more importantly, we could have placed a higher priority on adding subtitle options. And I'm sure you'll hear these themes a lot today. Seek early input and always provide lots of options. The fact is, we're not experts in accessibility. We're developers finding our way in inclusive design. Sometimes we get things right. Sometimes we miss the mark, even when the intent and the passion is actually there. But we keep trying. Next, I'm going to talk about how moving to the PC further unlocked accessibility in Forza. So our arrival on Windows 10 PCs opened the door to controllers and devices of all kinds being used to play Forza. We built a free demo to understand the PC player better. A surprising number of players use keyboard and mouse to play, so it's a good thing we spent a lot of time tuning it to make sure it still felt like Forza if you used WASD. What wasn't surprising was the variety of pedals and steering wheels that players like to use. And we knew that moving forward, if we were to broaden our to other customer segments, and regions where PC is more prevalent, we needed to build an open platform that would allow any peripheral. So as we started to build Forza Motorsport on the PC, we opened our USB support not only to fan-requested controllers and devices, but even things like the DualShock and Logitech G29 for PlayStation. Sacrilege! This is, we make Xbox. It may sound sacrilegious, but by supporting other platform controllers, we broaden our reach to more regions and to PlayStation gamers around the world if they had a gaming PC. So that's a win. The other things that we started doing is just plugging in anything with a USB. Cool. Believe it or not, we had people driving a 911 in the studio with a guitar controller and a dance pad. And you're not going to get fast lap times when you do this, but it works. It just works. And really, all of this laid the groundwork for future Forza titles and the Xbox adaptive controller. So taking the years of work that we did to broaden our player base through driving assists and things of this nature, and a more open USB platform, we can now merge them with the Xbox adaptive controller, unlocking an even greater number of possibilities. Here's Solomon Romney, again, playing Horizon 3 with just a foot pedal and a thumbstick. It's a really cool piece of technology, the adaptive controller. But we've learned that there are things you can do in your game design to unlock its full potential. It's the years of advancement in our Drivatar technology for us, and all those layered assist options I talked about, that help make Forza work so well with the adaptive controller. Observing how people play your game with the adaptive controller can also lead to more innovation. I recently had the opportunity to participate in several Xbox game nights at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle, where spinal injury patients undergoing therapy were given the chance to play our games and other games with the adaptive controller, and it was a huge learning experience. This is Jesse Collins steering a car with only his mouth, using a lip sync device attached to the adaptive controller. His feedback, and he has a lot of feedback, his feedback was that having to apply constant input for gas is really challenging for him, especially if he also needs to steer with his mouth. Jesse said it would be ideal if he can control the car just like he controls his chair, and he's really good on that chair. Puff wants to speed up, Sip wants to slow down, for example, puff twice to go really fast, sip hard to come to a full stop, and he has all kinds of ways to set it up. His chair gives him options. Well, we do options. So to allow him to do this, we need to add something to the game like an auto throttle assist, something with multiple speeds that he can cycle up or down with just a simple input. And you know what? An assist like this would not only help Jesse, it would help anyone who finds it tiring to hold the gas pedal down on your controller all day long. And we have found a lot of people have trouble with constant input. And guess what? There's another racing game you can look to that already does this really well. Mario Kart 8 added an auto accelerate option that quickly gets your kart to full speed without having to hold a button down. That's pretty cool. Were they trying to solve an accessibility problem? Or were they just trying to help players get to the finish line better, like we often do? Doesn't matter. The end result is they've got this really cool assist that we can now look to be inspired to solve problems for players like Jesse. And there's so many more barriers to remove, so many innovations to explore, great examples like this and others, and a lot of work ahead. How do you even go about all that? Where do you begin? First, everyone on your team needs to have empathy for players of all backgrounds and ability. Do they already have it? Do you wake up with empathy after you go to a conference like this? If not, how do you get it? Perhaps it begins with curiosity and resource. Being curious to understand what obstacles exist in your title for all players, and having the access to resources and people to help you understand them. Curiosity and resources can lead to genuine empathy. Now at Microsoft, we're fortunate to have lots of great resources like the G4E team, the Inclusive Tech Lab, or partnering up with Harborview for game nights. Observing and interacting with gamers as they encounter friction or barriers while playing our game helps us identify specific solvable problems. You should also have the same kind of dedication you have in making your game fun into making your game accessible. Remember that solving accessibility problems is really about solving customer problems. More customers and more happy customers is ultimately what everybody wants, right? There will be some people on your team that will have more passion for accessibility than others. That's natural. Find out who they are and empower them. Put them to work driving the team towards solutions. And lastly, I would say that you want to get help early. There's lots of help online. Subject matter experts, advocates, many of whom are here today. If you can't meet with them in person, try a Skype interview. Hit them up on Twitter DM. The earlier you seek their input during development, the better. So, looking back, there's so much we've accomplished over the years that helped make Forza so accessible. These are just some of the things. We've recently added text-to-speech, speech-to-text support for both games in compliance with the new CVAA requirements. And this is one of many things we'll be doing, not only to be compliant, but also to create a better experience for the rest of our players. There's still much more we can do. I'm pleased to share that we're actively working on voice-assisted screen reader menu support, as well as high-contrast UI options, and also giving Xbox players the same full controller remapping that we already allow them on PC. We will also be looking into UI, text, and of course, subtitle options. And something I'm particularly excited about are audio and tactile feedback options that we hope one day might allow a completely sightless gamer to play a Forza game, just like anybody else. We've reached out to advocates like Sightless Combat and others for ideas on how this might be achieved, and it's super exciting to think about the possibilities here. I mean, a few years ago, we weren't even thinking about this. Now, I played a game that he recommended called Top Speed 3, which is just an audio-only racing game. I get it, and we passing it around work, and we all get it. So there's a road ahead there that could be fun. And there's also things we might be able to do to improve things for players with mobility or cognitive challenges, like the throttle assist. Maybe there's time manipulation. Maybe there's other gameplay assist or a streamlined menu. These are all things we need to research and experiment with. So much to do. How do you know what to tackle and in what order? Well, we like to use this phrase, turn 100 ideas into 10 features you can ship. Every time we set out to make a Forza game, we have hundreds of great ideas every day before breakfast. That's easy. The hard part is taking those 100 ideas and whittling down to the 10 or so that you know you can ship to quality. And I mean that almost literally. We spend twice as long rescoping our game in pre-production as we do in concept. So identifying accessibility problems, customer problems to solve must be a key part of this. Broadly speaking, there are two ways we prioritize our work: priority and severity. Priority is the order in which we do the work. Severity is impact to the customer. These are intertwined, but you must understand severity before you can assign a priority. In the past, we'd prioritize accessibility features alongside a really cool gameplay feature. And guess what? The gameplay feature would usually win. But what if lack of accessibility were a high severity blocking bug, like we're not shipping the game? That changes your perspective. Accessibility is gameplay. We've made Forza more accessible over the years, not just by evolving our features, but also by evolving our thinking. To make your game to appeal as to many players as possible, you must think of accessibility as a critical component of gameplay. So try building an accessibility sprint into your pre-production schedule. You may find great ideas and passion from the team. Have them pick one or two problems to solve and give them a few weeks' time in which to do it, setting realistic and achievable goals and deliverables. You'd be amazed at what the team can come up with. All right, now I want to play a video, and I'm not sure we're going to get sound because that didn't seem to work on my last one. But to give you an idea of how we're putting this into action, I did put subtitles in the video. I spent a long time on them too. I'd like to share this video that chronicles an inclusive design summit we did at Turn 10 with the Games for Everyone team, where we invited guest subject matter experts to help just talk to the team about.
Angus, I'd love to get some insight into what you see as friction in our experiences. And it sounds like you haven't done a bunch of Forza, but in general, what kind of friction do you run into in games that we could be aware of?
Well, the biggest, easiest fix is subtitles. It's just, they're so bad in most games. The pressure that I need to maintain control on joysticks for my thumbs causes pain and fatigue in my thumbs, especially. And even using like a keyboard, back when I was playing Left 4 Dead.
It's that level of sort of modability or customizability in the control inputs. For someone like me, that's fantastic. Fantastic, because it's another opportunity.
When we go in and build something, we're often thinking about how can we be more inclusive, but it is us coming up with those questions and those answers and not going out to the community and the people that would actually use them and the actual experts. Being able to meet people who these products are impacting was just really a great experience.
We were surprised that they actually hadn't played a lot of Forza because the genre is just, there's such a stigma with it, with the amount of input that's required in order to drive. And so they were kind of taken aback a little bit by the amount of options we had.
Some of the things had been thought through really well, and I wasn't expecting that, honestly, because I'm so used to inaccessibility being the norm that I was actually surprised by how much insight had already been taken into account.
We allow options in key bindings, button bindings, we allow multiple devices, we have braking assists, we have steering assists at multiple levels. And what we found in the discussions is there's additional things we could do, like auto throttle and even stronger versions of auto steer.
We can give them way more fidelity in tuning, you know, not just the car, but the HUD, the layout, you know, all these other things that will make the experience richer for everybody.
They weren't asking us to make things easy for them. It was absolutely not the case, right? It was, you know, enable me to play the game the way you meant it to be played. We want to give players a lot of player agency, a lot of choice, and this is something that the SMEs really demanded. Like, they love that agency, they love having control over it, and I agree, that's what makes games fun. With us, I'll be perfectly honest, I feel like our UI and our user experience all up was really overly complicated. And for us to be able to wrangle that and for you know, people to be able to use this effectively, we need to really separate the amount of content we have from how you can access that content, and that's the key.
We're energized now to go, okay, you know, let's take this mantle and let's really own it. Let's really, truly make this something special for all players.
At the end of the day, when I succeed and I beat that game that I put 30 hours into, I feel like, hey, I did it, but that design team there sure did help me, because look at all these options I was able to do to enable me to do that. That's how you want your gaming experience to go. I did it, but man, thanks for that design team and their options menu.
To be able to change somebody's life by allowing them to play video games, that's huge. Having seen that, I'm even more excited to go back to my desk and make this the most accessible game in the world, because I think that there's a big importance to making sure that there's no roadblocks for anyone.
So that was a fantastic learning experience for everyone involved, and has further galvanized everyone in the studio. I mean, you can see the energy around the goal of making Forza more accessible through inclusive design as we move forward. So it may be a long road to building a fully accessible game, but it's a journey we're excited to be taking. You can't get there all at once, but you can make meaningful incremental progress. It requires passion, requires perseverance, and a long view of where you want to take not only your game with accessibility, but also over a series or a franchise over several years. And planning early and empathetically, you are going to delight and include more players. We frankly stumbled into it. And even with clear intent, sometimes we still stumble. But we're always learning when we're energized to do more. With each iteration, we take small steps toward making a more accessible and inclusive franchise. And these are important steps in making gaming for everyone a reality, which is our North Star. So thank you for having me today. There is a ton of help out there. These are just some of the sites available that we use all the time. There are many people you can reach out to here today. Just reach out. My contact info is on this slide as well. If you have ideas to improve Forza accessibility, feel free to shoot me an email, but do not send me car requests of cars you want to see in Forza because I will block you immediately.